Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman. I am the streamer for this stream, and we work on a Django app that I'm building as a side project. And I take you along for my journey and try and teach you some things that I know about Django as someone who's been doing it for many years at this point. We're going to work on a landing page tonight. I have my app and I've been working on the functionality for a long time, but I'd like to give people something to see when they get there eventually as a way to market to potentially interested users. And we're going to try and integrate a landing page into the app, and that's our plan for this evening. Before we get started, I'll let you know about ways that you can keep in touch with me if you are so inclined. There is a link above to my website where you can check out articles that I write about Python or Django. You can sign up for a mailing list and be first to hear about these new articles as they come out. And I'm also on Twitter and GitHub as MB Lehman, and I'm on Patreon as MB Lehman as well. So if you're enjoying this content and you want to contribute and become a patron, you can do that by going to patreon.com/MB Lehman and support me there. It would be really appreciated. I do want to thank my patrons that I currently have of Rupert and Abdulaziz, Patrick, Mark, and Eric. You all do good work for me and help me support the community by covering various costs that I have with producing all this content. So thank you very much for your contribution. All right, so one final thing. I guess if you have some discussion topics that you want to talk about that are Django related, you can join the Discord that is linked below. And I've got a Discord chat there that I check fairly regularly, and we'll have some kind of dialogue with you if you have some questions. So feel free to use that, especially if you've got questions that you might want to ask on Twitter but you think are going to be too long. We can go into a longer format on Discord. So we can also say that I can also say that you can ask me anything about Python or Django or web development. That's what I'm here for. And I'm going to put that note up so that people can see that as we get going. Hey, welcome. Glad you're here. All right, let's get started. So what am I doing tonight? I mentioned last week that I'm kind of in, not a full lull in the app, but my spouse, who is my customer, is kind of inserting data into the app, and she's not ready to use it yet for school year. So there is this period of time where I'm not getting as much direct feedback about what needs to be done on the application. And so I'm kind of left to my own devices, which it can be dangerous, I guess. But hopefully we can make good use of this time. And so let's look at the site and see some stuff. Here's a hot mess here. So here's my normal site. And this is great if you're already a customer or a user of the service and you're able to use it, but how are you going to get there? In software as a service systems, and I'm sure you've seen dozens of them as you've browsed the web looking for tools that you might need to use for your work or just for other hobbies that you might have. There's some kind of marketing material designed to get you interested in the app and explain its features and present its use case of why choose this application. And the term that I mostly see those called is as a landing page. And so when I put together a landing page, I want to have kind of a brochure of here's why you should use this tool, or do you match, are you the right kind of user that would get the most benefit out of the tool? So you kind of have to sell it. Part of building a SaaS is about marketing. And we've been very heavily focused on the product for a long time. And I did that intentionally so that I would get a tool that mattered to a customer. And so far, my customer has been happy with what is there to date. But if I want to have more customers that aren't in my family, then I'm going to have to go out to other channels to try and attract those customers. And so we're going to build a landing page, and you can see what I have here. I'm not terrible at design, but I'm not a designer by trade. I'm not some kind of wizard at design. So I don't want to have to do something myself. That's a good question. I do develop during the live streams. There is also sometimes I do some work outside of live streams. Like I've already done a little bit of work on this landing page stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, but not too much. It kind of depends on how busy and how active the features are that my spouse needs, frankly. And if there are features that are needed, I will do them at that time because she's important to me. But otherwise, I kind of do what I can during the stream. So we're going to build out a landing page. And as I said, I'm not a designer. So I want to see if I can take advantage of other designers and other people who take their work and make it available freely. And I think that one thing that's awesome about open source is there's a lot of that. So I can search out a good base to work from and then customize it to my needs. That's my goal. And to do that, I did some searching, and I wanted to find a marketing site that would work with my existing CSS toolkit. So I'm using Tailwind CSS for all of my CSS. And the reason I want to find a marketing site that works with Tailwind is because there are certain elements for my user interface that I actually want to be part of my marketing site. So if you're logged in and you happen to visit the site, you would see the marketing page, but with the extra Chrome, like this navigation bar at the top and the sub-navigation that I have, this gray bar in the middle. I want those to appear on the main page. But in order to do that seamlessly, I mean, I could probably make it work with some other tools, but making it work with Tailwind would be ideal. So I hunted around for what kind of templates are available for Tailwind and found a style that I liked. And, you know, to be blunt, like landing pages there's not necessarily a ton of creativity that goes into these anymore. It seems like it's a prerequisite for something that you should have for your site. But if you've seen one landing page, you've kind of seen them all at this stage, and that's not universally true, but you gotta pick something. And I'm gonna start from a base of content which seems reasonable. So this is the one that I am selecting. What we have here, and I'm gonna take off Flux so I can see the real colors. Because if I describe them and you're like, man, he's really colorblind or something, which, you know, that's fine if you are, but I'm not. So we've got this kind of like pink to yellow transition, and there's some orange between here, and that does not map well to my color scheme at all for my site. But the cool part about this template is that it is customizable, and I can set some attributes that will change this. So what I want to do tonight is essentially integrate this landing page example that's here into my site as my index page, the root of my project. So the first thing that you would visit if you visit the URL, and start. I don't know that I'm going to get to like copy and stuff, because that's like thought that I haven't put into this, but I want the bones there that will allow me to then fill out some of these categories, have some options. Maybe we can substitute some images, because some of these images make zero sense for my product. Like this world thing makes absolutely no sense for a homeschool thing when it's all about your own home and your own family. So we can perhaps replace some images and change some colors and see what happens. But that's the work that I want to do in this app so far. So that's the plan. And I got this from a website. I think you can see the URL in the streaming that says Tailwind Toolbox. I don't remember what else was on there. Yeah, I'm using a Tailwind version from a CDN, which is nice, which it kind of lines up with what this site has as well. So it's actually to my advantage that they do that. And in fact, it looks like they use some of their own tech, even in their own templates here. I'm looking at this gradient thing. It's looking very familiar. So you can see that they applied this strategy to their very own site, and I'll be doing something similar. So they have some templates here that you can do for various purposes, and I'm picking, not very creatively, this landing page one. But I searched around, and this site seemed to have some good options when I compared to what else was out there on the internet. So I have so far, let's go over to the code and bring up the template that matters. I've been hacking it in, is what I've been doing at this point. So much so that I basically, here's been my process so far. I took the starter example and I literally went view page source, Control A, copy, and then go into my template and do a Control V to paste it all in. And then in order to make it work with my existing, some of my existing template stuff, I hacked it up to make it extend from my base template and put it in my main block that I have in my base template and put in the content in here. So it's literally a copy and paste at this point. And this site is specifically designed to be shared, so I feel pretty comfortable doing that, although I guess I didn't check the license or attribution, so I will be a good individual and go see if there's anything that I need to call out. They might just be purely, use this as you want. Yeah, it's a project. I guess there's not even information that's clearly here about how to do attribution if I need to. But I will make sure to explore that before I'm all done. But let's look at what this looks like right now. It's not correct right now. So you can see there's some serious stuff happening that is very awkward. Most of it actually is correct, which is cool. But I have the wrong colors in here. That's the first thing to notice. I have the other thing to notice is that the thing is arbitrarily constrained to this size. So I have this auto margin that I have on my main UI, and actually it's a good example of, you can see all of my normal user interface elements fit inside of this box with a certain amount of spacing. But for this landing page, that is absolutely not what I want. And the other thing to notice is that there's some navigation at the top that I really don't desire. I want to use my own navigation there. So I want to delete this landing thing that's appearing and changing color. That's not something I desire. So we're going to work with this template, and we need to make some modifications because I'm using my base template right now. And let's take a look at that base template and see what's in there. There's some challenges with my base that make that so that this particular landing page doesn't actually work here. My base template includes the head tag, which is good. I want this to be available to every site, and I don't want to have to repeat that. So that's good. That can stay. I also have said that I want to include my navigation and my sub-navigation. So if you're already logged in, it would display the appropriate thing. So I don't want that to change either. The problem is around here. You see I have this main tag in my HTML, and here's where I have that block. So all the code that was copy and pasted from that landing page is being inserted right here in this block main. But if we look up and see what is the surrounding tag, that's where we notice the problem. The problem is here, that the main is using this container class and using MX Auto and P8, and it's using some stuff to constrain my normal user interface. And so what I need to do, or what my thought process for fixing this, was to change this to be a different template so that all my other templates will use this for any stuff that is related to my main actual user interface, and that I will create a new base that is simpler, that does not have this constraint on here. Although now that I'm saying that, there might be a much easier way to handle this. The other option for doing this is to observe that what's really happening here. I have this looks terrible because I am putting all of the content inside of this main box. And the main boxes really corresponds to everything below this subnav, this gray line here. So in fact, let's see if we can hack this up and see what it would do. If we come in here and come to the main and take out, let's take out this print class. Let's take out MX auto and P8 and container. Let's leave the flex grow because it's part of a flex container. But do that and then reduce this. So that immediately did almost everything that I need. Yeah. And then I can drop, or I can rework this footer if I want. Yeah, my footer is not going to have a lot of this stuff. I think I'll just probably kill off this whole footer so that I have my own footer down here, which you can see has my name and about and terms and privacy. Eventually I might grow that to include a support link or some of these things that exist in this landing page, but I don't need that today. Okay, so doing that showed that really the change that will make most of this work is nothing more than customizing the classes that are here. So I think what I want to do is wrap this stuff in a block, and we'll call this, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, Kuhutlim? I'm sorry if I'm getting your handle totally wrong. My plan is here is like make a block that is just the main CSS classes. That's a pretty terrible name, but most of the time I won't be customizing this. So if I make this block here, then and do an end block over here. So in most cases within the app, like if I come over to the school year, that change did nothing. So it's still all there. And now if I go into my index page and let's see, if I add a new block of what I call it main CSS classes, and then just do flex grow, I think that was the only thing that was in there that I really cared about. And even that's it's a little leaky. It has some knowledge of what's in the base. That's not great, but I'm okay living with that. Now if I come over here, then cool. That's like none of the other stuff is needed. So that really goes a long way to doing what I need to do. So I think we're ready to like move on to the next chunk. The other thing that I will call out is like I don't know if you notice, I certainly don't have enough eye for fonts to notice, is that this font versus my font are different. I'm using a standard Tailwind font here. So I might clean that up. I don't know that I want, because if I have a common nav and subnav on a certain font, I don't know that I want a custom font on the landing page if they're going to also see my regular font in the navigation. All right, so that's a good step in the right direction. Let's delete all of this garbage that was extra from the page that we're not going to need. So now we've got it down to that. And what else do we require? Wow, there's something really funky there. That double quote does not belong there. I must have added that by accident. Or actually, let's see. Let's see if that was in the original. Ah, that was in the original. So that was their fault, not mine. Oh well, nobody's perfect, right? So we cleared out some junk. That gets us down to clearing this stuff out. Now we can go in and clear out that navigation stuff. That's what I want to knock out. We have to make sure we find the right tags. So let's inspect this stuff and see if we can go up to the right level, and that way. Okay, they even call it, they give it a comment in the code. That's nice. So it's nav. Oh, there it is right there. So I have in my editor, I can get all this code and delete all the tag at one go. And so that gets us down to this stuff. So that's suddenly coming together a lot more quickly, which is cool. What else do we need? We need to make, so this is a big missing image. We'll have to replace that with something. I don't know what yet. And I think a lot of these color attributes are coming from the gradient class that's defined. And probably as well, I bet there's some CSS on some of these things that, okay. So they've used text orange on the link, and that's not gonna work for my color scheme. So we'll continue to poke at this and get it to fit in. I think, let's see, let's look at the original. Notice here, there's a large gap between the top and, when the actual content starts. I have a feeling, yeah, that's a much smaller gap here. So I have a feeling what they were doing is some offset stuff to anticipate this landing page that was floated to the top, which we aren't going to need. So let's tighten that up. Yeah, they've got a padding top of 24 here. So let's drop that to 4 and see how that looks, which is going to bring the content way up because there won't be so much top padding. That's a lot better. All right, the other thing that I want to do is, this is the logged in view. I am logged in as a user right now. And so there's this content bar here that is new, but this is not what most people are going to see. So I'm going to log out and refresh. Now that was not anticipated. So we've got this blue bar, and now I think it's time to play with the colors. Get rid of this pink and pick the right yellow is what we want to do. Whoops. So if we inspect this stuff, and because I never remember what the color is, so it's 2B6CB0, and there's a gradient class that's here. I'm going to change this first one to 2B6CB0 as the blue color. And now we are rapidly approaching something good or better. And the other is we need to get the proper yellow. Like this yellow is a different tone. Doesn't match. So I want ECC94B. ECC94B. Okay. And refresh. And it should lighten the yellow, I think, a little bit. Because this one's kind of, yeah. That one was a lot more orange and a lot more muted. Okay. There was another thing I wanted to try that we haven't replaced this hero image yet, but one thing I'm not crazy about on this transition is that it's purely a linear gradient on the horizontal. And while I think that makes it for something that feels fairly even, I think what happened when I went lighter with the yellow, it sort of fades out content over here. The other thing to note is that because we're using a blue, kind of a darker color now, instead of a warmer color or a lighter, warmer color, the copy color here needs to change from black to white. So we'll tweak that in a little bit as well, but we'll do one thing at a time. So what I want to play with is the gradient class that's there, and I don't know. Well, actually, I guess we can twiddle with it here to see what the effects will be. So there was here's the style attribute. Here's gradient, but the gradient it's on this class, and we can kind of fiddle with it. And so we've got 90 degrees, and so I guess I don't remember where gradients start from. They must be up and down. So if we try to change this to 0, we don't even see it because it's all the way at the bottom of the page. It's going, oh, you can see it on the buttons. So it's going top to bottom. So that's not what we want. But what I do want to try and do is mess with it so that essentially I want the blue to be more of the top. So it's probably going to be greater than 90 because yellow was on the top when it was 0. So we want to, like, if you can visually shift it in your head, I want the blue to probably be like, the angle to be like, well, I guess it's backwards for you. Maybe 120 degrees or something like that. Let's try that and see what happens. If we do it too much, then you like completely lose the yellow, which is not what we want. You can see that the buttons are a good kind of microcosm of what it's doing for the whole page, but that's too much. So we're not gonna have nearly as much wiggle room as I thought, but you can see the effect of what it's doing. It's giving us more blue real estate. So 120 is definitely too much. Let's try 110, and we're gonna, each time we take a chunk back, we're gonna add more and more yellow here. Let's move it down to 100. Yeah, this isn't quite the effect I thought it was going to be. Well, but we'll keep poking at it. So let's go back to 90 and 95. It's kind of feeling better. Like I want it to be, you know, the main color of this site is blue, and so I don't want yellow to be like screaming out at the user. And by the time they get to the bottom, like that looks pretty cool down here. Yeah, I like that a lot. Unfortunately, it doesn't look quite as slick at the top, but we'll keep poking at it. So let's come back to gradient and try. Let's go, and maybe it's just like a small tweak. 93, because here's 90. I wish I could just up this 1 percentage point at a time, but I can't just hit up. Firefox is not doing anything with that. 91, like immediately, yeah, pay attention to like this corner by the login sign up if you can. And you can see on 90, there's just a lot of yellow. It's at full yellow right here because it's a full horizontal gradient. But even just going 91 is like suddenly shifted everything just enough so that the top corner is now no longer 100% yellow by that point in time. So finding the right balance is interesting. I think maybe 94 feels good. I'm not actually wild about what it does to the button. But I didn't really like the button design before it started anyway. I might change that and replace it with something simpler, because it does feel a little strange to me. I probably want more just like straightforward buttons like that don't confuse people. Okay. So 94 is feeling reasonable enough at the moment. So let's switch that over here. I'm going to come in and like, I like one strategy that you can do is kind of play with your CSS from inspecting the elements for a while. And then when you're happy, you cement the change to something different. So now I've reloaded the page and it's showing this new gradient and everything's in there. So what can we do next? Well, I think the next thing to do is delete this footer stuff. And delete at the very bottom these elements that we definitely don't need. The footer is the whole thing that we don't need. So I'm going to delete that. And see how it comes out now. Oops. I want this to go right up to the edge. So I don't know if that's coming from my existing footer or if it's coming from this. It doesn't look like it's coming from my existing footer. My existing footer is like right, it has very little padding. So it must be coming from main itself. And it's something within here. Yeah, this section, it's got that MB12 on that section. That's not right. And that made sense when there was an actual footer to use, but now, now that doesn't make sense for this context. So let's take out that MB12. And now it's going to put it right on the bottom there, which tightens it up a lot. I'm going to have to probably... I'm wondering if this is even worth fretting about. Notice, yeah, I think it is. Like, look, you can probably see this. Well, maybe you can't. There is a gray line on my footer. And it's not really as noticeable in the blue corner over here because it's darker, but check out this yellow corner, which is kind of hiding behind this toolbar, this scroll bar. But there it goes away. Right here looks strange because the gray line exists and then doesn't exist on the rest. So that feels weird. So what can we do about that? Do I have a footer template? No, it must be part of my base. How can we modify this? So here's my footer, and the reason it's coming out like that is that I have this border top and a border gray, and I wonder if let's try this. This is the same section that we had. What if we, rather than trying to like get it perfectly, I wonder if we just add a little bit of a gray border, if it'll make it like not feel as noticeable. There's still going to be a 1 pixel gray border from the footer. But this might be enough of an illusion on the eye to make this okay. I'm going to add a border bottom, same, and match it up with the same gray color as the footer that exists, and see what the impact is. Reloading. I almost feel like it did something. Did that work? It must have worked. It's really like playing a trick on my eye. In a pretty serious way. It's very strange. Let's inspect to here, because that's going to get us the right. Okay. Unless I spelled it wrong. There's the border. Let's toggle it. Yeah, it's definitely there. So if I turn it off, it's very noticeable. Or it's noticeable enough. Huh. Alright, I think we need a different solution. I think... What can I do? What can I do? We could make this... So I could hack this up and put another block there like we did with that earlier trick with main. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. It would work, but it feels like, what are you doing? Well, let's That's going to be the easiest solution for now, and it makes me not have to think too much about it, and I'll probably never worry about it again after this point. So we'll say block footer CSS border. And do an end block here. And now if we whoops, that was not the right spot. That was the new code we added. We're going to do that here. So we'll say I'll do the same thing. Block footer CSS border, and I should include the border top. That would help. Okay. And then we'll put an end block on it. It feels pretty hacky to do what I'm doing, but this is a page that it's like a one-off kind of case, and I think I'm okay living with this extra block. So we need to add a new block at the bottom, or it doesn't have to be at the bottom, that's just where I'm choosing to put it. And we're going to override the footer CSS border, but we're just going to leave it empty. Effectively, we're going to zero it out. So now when we come in here and refresh, that border is gone. And wow, it is crazy to me. Like, what eyes are weird, right? Like my brain, once that border was gone, suddenly saw this as this like smooth, seamless, continuous thing. That's so strange to me. Biology, right? Okay. I really think we're going to have to use white. I'm afraid we're in kind of no man's land for legibility here. That's my fear. Is like, if I pick white for this footer sub action, then, well, let's just see it. It's probably going to look, my guess is it's going to look strange. Let's close the base. The other thing is, like, I don't know that we need any of this JavaScript stuff. I'm not doing any scroll things or sliding things. Like, I don't, well, what are they doing here? I wonder if they have this apply classes for slide in bar. I don't even know what that's talking about. I think I probably deleted whatever they're referring to here. Okay, this is a very simplistic UI. I definitely don't have some toggle drop-down list. So let's get rid of this stuff. I just don't think any of that stuff is needed. Let's see if there were any effects noticeable from doing that. Like scroll effects or whatever. I don't think so. Okay. I think it's reasonable. Okay, this stuff can be white, and I think it'll look great. It should look great. And I don't really like including, I appreciate it from the point of view of they're making a template that they want to show to people, but I hate having HTML comments in my HTML markup. And there's obviously some stuff in here as well that is just junk, that some spaces from somebody's editor that doesn't show them spaces, so they didn't even realize it was there. So we've got this container that exists here, and going to, it's like indenting. It's fixing some indents right now. because I reformatted stuff. 1 second. I didn't think it would take this long. What is it doing? Never seen Vim go that slow with like formatting. All right, so I reformatted all these like things that weren't displaying properly, so that now everything lines up in my Vim file, or my file. Should have had 0 effect on the actual layout stuff, and that appears to be true still. Okay. And we're going to change the color. So I'm looking for, this container has this stuff that's in there. And I'm looking for, here's a text center item. Well, that's centered, really? Let's try adding text white to see the impact on that. And good. Cool. I like how that feels. The rest of these colors feel pretty good, or at least the title stuff. We're going to change this color a little later. The links. I don't even know if I need links, so I might just delete that later. What else do we need to modify on this? We should probably mess with these buttons. As I said, I'm not really crazy about them. Kind of would rather just have a solid color. I think there's enough gradient stuff in this top area, this hero area, and in this footer to have like visual interest, because I want those, because those are going to be the call to actions, right? If you have a site and you really want to send a specific message, your call to action is what you want to highlight, and those should be visually interesting to get your attention. So having a call to action in this one gradient makes sense, and the other one at the bottom also makes sense. There is some pricing information here, but which is in euros, I think. Is that the euro symbol? Anybody know? Clearly an American. But yeah, there's all these actions in here, and I don't really understand why they have so many. I'm also wondering if I deleted something by accident. Like, look at these X's now. What did I do? Nope. Okay, that's in the original. So there's some cleanup that we need to do. The next thing to try is to come down to this bottom call to action and see if we can make this main hero message, if making that white will be okay. I'm afraid it won't, because of the where it is positioned in the center. Oh, that's actually not bad. There's more blue over here than I thought. Because if you had like, if for example we had just a ton of yellow, and there was yellow very strongly over here, it would be so hard to read that white that no one would be able to know what that said. But the style of having a white action button and white text feels pretty good. The other thing to do here is, I think, where I'm left with, before I want to go to images, because I do want to get to some images, and again, if you're joining a little later, I'm not interested in changing any of the copy today. That's not my goal, but I do want to make sure that the look and feel of this landing page is good enough, and that does include images. So we'll go to Undraw a little later. They also use Undraw, which it's a great service that's available, and then that will be the end of what we're trying to do here today. So the last thing I want to do is come into these action buttons and change them to stop using the gradient. So let's go to, wow, I did some really funny formatting on that SVG. I'll probably be deleting that thing anyway. Action. action. So if we take out gradient, this is one of those getting started ones. It's probably the first one. Let's just try taking out gradient and see what happens. The gradient is the class that's adding that linear gradient, or mostly linear gradient, onto a button. And it's defaulting to white, which is terrible. So we'll say BG blue. I think I use 700 most of the time, maybe that or 600. And now we're at the much simpler styling, but very clear. The other bit that I'm really not crazy about is that well, hold on one second. Yeah, BG Blue 700, that matches the top navigation. The bit that I'm not crazy about is like, there's a, this difference here. I mean, I think it's only saved by the fact that there's a bit of a separator between them. But if that gray bar did not exist between them, this blue would look very strange butted up against this yellow, which is why I was trying to shift the gradient more. But I think what happened with that I didn't anticipate is that the gradient shift is not, it's not for this bounding box here. So I expected the gradient to apply to just this container. Oh, you know, maybe we can correct this. All right, we're gonna play with this. So right now, the gradient that's here is something I applied to everything from top to bottom of the container. And the impact of that is that, yeah, we get this kind of cool, like, it flows. You got to think of it as like one long document, and the blue sort of flows and slightly overtakes by the bottom, sorry, the other way around. The yellow becomes slightly more dominant on the bottom. But I don't think that that's what I want. I think what I really want is to put the gradient on these individual containers, so that the angle that is in play is up over a much smaller vertical distance. And so I think what that will do is it will cause the degree rotation to have less of an impact. So we should be able to like tighten it up and then shift the degrees more. That's my theory. And I think I just applied the gradient for the top just to get something going, but I don't think this is actually what we want. So for the moment, I'm going to comment this out and comment out the div at the end. And wow, Vim really messed with my template here. Yeah, that's strange. Why'd you do that, Vim? And so I've commented those out, and if I refresh, now it's all white. So we lost the gradient, which is kind of bad. If it sort of tells me that this is not going to be friendly if someone is visiting this page and there's a delay from when it loads the CSS. So we probably should apply a dark background color before the gradient so that during that flash of style where it's not appearing, you will at least be able to see the white text on some dark background. But we'll get one thing at a time. Actually, I should probably verify the background color first. So here's our main, one of our first containers here. And we want it to apply not to the container class because that has some bounding to it, but this outside div. So let's put, I think here's the problem. The gradient is this crazy thing right here. That is the gradient class. So we probably need to use this gradient and then wrap the whole div like that. And that'll get the top. So we brought the top back, but the bottom is still gone. But notice that the top gradient, the yellow, is way stronger now than it was previously. So we've kind of given ourselves, I think we've given ourselves a lot more control. So I feel like that's the right change. The other thing I want to do is now fiddle with the gradient degree again and see if we can make that blue be more pronounced in the vertical direction without like muting the yellow too much. That will hopefully be possible now that we have a tighter amount of space to work with. It's not so stretched out over time, or over distance, I should say. So let's inspect this element again. Let's go to the gradient class that's here, and we're going to fiddle with the numbers again, and let's try going back up to 120 and see what that does. It's hard to see. I've got this, streaming doesn't give me the most real estate for doing this stuff, but I think we can get enough. The other thing to do is like, linear gradients have more options than what we're using here, I think. So let's go to the documentation, or a good place for documentation. I use the MDN tools for this. And let's see if there are things that I'm forgetting about. I think there are ways to like put in additional stops on stuff so that we could have the gradient start a little later, perhaps, if we wanted to. I don't know that that's going to be what we really want, though. So here's the color stop. It starts turning green in this example at 40%. So it's kind of like we just have to play with some of these things sometimes, I think. So if we say, what happens if we say 10, like 2? Well, so we can really see it, let's do 40%. See if it really messes with what we've got. It probably will. Whoa, okay. That's actually not bad. So it definitely moved. What it did, and I think what it is, it gave us a really solid area for the blue. So okay, this makes sense to me now. It's saying don't kick the gradient into effect until you get to 40% of the dimension. And since the hero message that's there, what you can read is what they call main hero message to sell yourself, is on that side, that means that it has that nice impact of the hero message area is very clearly just like right in this blue. So I actually like that quite a bit. Let's still go back though and play with the degree, because we refreshed, so it dumped it back to 94. And we'll change it to like 104, or well, let's try 120 again, see how that looks. So we still get the blue pretty hard. And then there's a splash of yellow in there. And I think that'll come in pretty nicely when we get a hero image here. Let's fiddle with the second percentage number and see. So if we decrease this number now, then we're going to reduce the amount of blue. So it's going to pull out some more yellow. Let's try 30. So you can see it's a little hard to tell on some of these things, but what we can pay attention to is the amount of this lower right corner is growing in its amount of yellow. I'm going to shift it to 20. Because remember, it was at 0, so it's like 50-50 even. And I hope you can agree with me that this looks like really washed out from what the blue looks like. So you like lose all of the main theme color of the site, and I don't like it. And as we go up, it kind of, I feel like it just is breathing life into this color as I look at it. So maybe I'm just really biased towards blue. I don't know. Y'all can be the judge. But I'm where my eye is going right now is if I try 10, then I see this "what business for you or are you" message is pretty clear to me right now because it's in that deep blue. But as I read through the body copy text, And because I've changed it to white. It was black originally. As I read through that, it's harder for my eyes to read the text that's on the right side of that area. So every time we bump it up, I feel like that becomes easier, which is motivating me more and more to say, like, we should bump it up until the text is completely easy to read. And this is at 30%. And you can see even, I don't know how well this comes through on the stream, if compression really screws with the colors or not, but even at 30%, I'm getting a little bit of like the banding of the color shift happening right over these last words. So 40% actually feels really right to me. I don't know what this is going to do on the mobile sizes. I don't know how much I care though. Yeah, so the mobile stuff, it doesn't look as good, but I kind of don't care. I'm not really optimizing for mobile. Like the users of this site, if this is your first time watching, this is a homeschool application. It's meant for people who are at home with their family, able to log in and sit at their desktop. Like I'm just, it's not something that you're going to want to do on the go. So I'm not trying to cater to folks that are going to be looking at this on their phone. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's not that it even looks terrible. Like it looks okay. But I really want to optimize for this kind of screen size. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize it right now to a much larger size. And I can't see any of the chat messages or anything anymore, but that's okay. I'm just doing this for a moment. And your view is also cut off. But I wanted to get a visual idea of what this looks like at far size, at the most extreme size that I want to target. And it still looks pretty good to me. There's a lot of blue. So maybe, what if we try 35? This is not an exact science. That's what happens when you get into like design mode. All right, I think I like this well enough to want to stick with it. Let's put this back to where it was roughly. So the numbers I've got are now 120 degrees and 35%. And let's do a page refresh to make sure that it still looks the same. It does. Now the other thing we need to do is now return to the bottom area where this other gradient was and add in the gradient CSS class to make sure that that applies as well to there. So we're going to go to the bottom, find the stuff that this applies to, and it applies to from here down. So here's our gradient class again. So we'll say div class equal gradient because we want to wrap both of these circumstances and put it after the section. Did I mess this up? Maybe I missed. That might have been the wrong one. Okay, that might be the wrong spot. Oh yeah, I'm way too high. That was totally the wrong one. Okay, back up. We want to be here. They gave it a name, called it wave top. So let's give div class gradient. That's cool, DPs. I'm not going to take a look at that today, but maybe I'll check it out after the stream. Currently on Heroku, but good for you for trying something out as a way to deploy web apps. All right, cool. I like that. That looks good. Okay, the other thing I want to try is, can I put a solid color here? Can I say BG blue 700? I'm wondering if that's going to help. I don't think it will. Now, the more I think about it. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to solve for this case where if you load the HTML and the CSS hasn't loaded yet, but you have white text by default. But I guess it's not going to be a problem, because in that case where the CSS hasn't loaded yet, text white technically won't be a thing yet. So even if somebody saw the page unstyled for some reason, which they really shouldn't, because CSS is intended to block rendering until it's loaded, and the CSS, the link tag is at the top, so that really should block completely. I don't think that that's going to matter. So I'm talking myself out of this, I guess, is where I'm getting to. Okay. So what do we have? We have, that's super weird. Look at this. Is that in the original? Oh, they messed that up. That doesn't look right. Look at the positioning of these action buttons. The one is, they used the wrong, I think, flex justify, probably, because it's like spacing them out in these really awkward dimensions. So it should all be, I think, what they intended. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think what they intended is to have this be centered like this style, but, and then, unless it could be an example, I suppose. Let's take a look, because that looks wonky. Okay. Where was that action? Here's the first action. And what are they doing? Flex none. Okay, I think they are showing us different examples. Yep. Okay. I feel better about them as designers. So here's the justify start, justify center, and justify end. So it's showing you different kinds of positions you can put for your different blocks. In my opinion, if you're going to have 3 blocks that are vying for attention and they're kind of things you want to show off, and they're uniform, this style of having them all left or right aligned doesn't make as much sense to me personally. So for the moment, I'm going to change them to justify center for all of them. And that should put them in the middle for all these buttons. Oops, that's not the page. Puts them in the middle, tightens that up. And then I'm going to take out the gradient and replace it with BG Blue 700, like I did with the first one. BG Blue 700. Same thing. All right, now we've got 3 buttons. They're not super riveting here, where it's just highlighting this, but I'm okay with that. And then I think I want to do the same thing on these sign up buttons. I don't like that feeling there. So we'll change, I guess we'll go to continue searching for a gradient and replace them with those. It's a clever use of gradient. Like, so they have this one gradient class. It's been applied in many spots. So there's something going on here that I think they messed up. Like, that's rounded. Let's find that thing. Basic. I think it seems like there are things that they tried that maybe were left in or copy pasted around that didn't apply. Like, it's fine to put it on this pricing box and have the rounded corners, but these details matter to people. Well, they matter to me. I look at these and I see like, ooh, you messed that up. So maybe I'm just a pixel perfect snob kind of person. But I think it's important to get the details right. So we're going to take, we're going to delete the rounded top here, and hopefully that fixes basic to go flush with the side. It didn't. So did I pick the wrong one? What'd I do? Oh, I did pick the wrong one. H1. Ah. I think I picked this one, the pricing one, by accident. Should have been this. Great. That looks way better to me, where it's now flush up to the edge like it should be. Cool. So I'm pretty pleased with how all this is turning out. I think it's fit. I hope you'll agree that it has started to fit well into my theme. And my theme is deliberately simple in colors. It's a 2-color theme. And if you're working on your own product and doing your own design work, keep your color count to a minimum is my recommendation. Enough of the designers that I've read have said, start with like black and gray and stuff, and then only add a little bit of color after that. But I have a colors that I've selected, and that's what I'm going with. So, yeah, that's where I'm at today. I think what's left, we need a hero image. Yeah, thanks, Caxataz. I do. There's I keep the dates. Most of the stuff I try and post is usually like not super time sensitive, and the time granularity that I keep is in the actual URL of 2020. But if you have the RSS feed, it has the actual dates in them. So that's where the published dates are. But you're right. I don't actually have dates on there because I don't think it adds a ton of value outside the URL personally. Anyway, getting back to what to do next, I think we need a hero image, and they had a hero JPEG of some kind or something that I don't plan to be using. I think I'll be using something from Undraw and SVG, most likely. I'm hoping that it will scale appropriately because they've got some size classes on here of, well, what you can see here, full width, what to do at resized elements, all of that stuff. So let's go to trusty old Undraw, which I've now used many times on this stream. And let's look for what I could use for this. This is a homeschool application. So let's search for school and see if there's an image that I haven't already used, because I've used this one. I'm pretty sure I've used this one. I've used this one. So I've already kind of rated the cookie jar when it comes to school type images on Undraw. And my Flux just kicked on, so I'm going to turn that off again. I don't know that I've used learning. That might be interesting. It's kind of got this girl. And the other thing I do with these is I make sure that the color is right. Because that's a cool aspect of Undraw. So 2B6CB0. 2B6CB0. So if we start with that as the blue, I'm curious, this one feels pretty good. I'm going to try it. And because what I'm hoping for is that if there's a girl in the image and she's like wearing a blue shirt, and I'm hoping that will blend. That might be like a little bit of a highlight with the yellow. I don't know. It might look nice. Let's try it out. And if it doesn't work, we'll throw it away. So we need to take this one, and it looks like this one's called Learning. I'll download it and save it. And I'm going to open it which will put it through my optimizer program and take out some of the extra stuff from the SVG that doesn't need to be there. So this is a really great program if you're on a Mac. It's called Image Optim, and it can save a ton of bytes on your stuff. So definitely recommend that. And I want to make sure I don't already have it. So that's something worth checking on. I don't. Good. Because I think I try to choose the same names as from Undraw. So we're going to move from my downloads area the Undraw learning, and we'll call it learning SVG. All right. Now we've got a new, oops, shoot, it's not my stack folder. It's meant to go in here. Yeah. Okay. And just so I can get another quick reference from somewhere else that uses an image, just going to pull one of these. I don't remember if I need to give it a size or not. Whoops. All right, let's just try replacing it and see what happens. Static learning SVG. And we need to load. Now that we're using the static tag, we need to load static as well. Otherwise, the static tag is not going to be there. Whoops, killed the server. Start that up again. That looks pretty good. It's not perfect. I might nudge it over a little bit more away from the hero messaging. It looks a little claustrophobic in my taste. It might shrink it. Cool. Glad you are appreciating some of the stuff that's there. Hopefully, hope that you find it useful in the future as well. Okay, let's try and add some margin left to the side. That feels a little better. I think what it's doing as well is it might be shrinking it slightly because it has to make room in the container. I could be wrong about that, but the more spacing feels better to me. And there's probably going to come a point where it's like, oh, that's overdoing it. Okay. I don't know that that's the perfect image, but it's a start. There's downsides to this image that the more I look at it, the more that they kind of stand out to me. Like having these shadows underneath the image, underneath the character here, are kind of clashing a bit with this nice swoopy gradient thing that is part of this header area. So there's probably better choices there. This one looks okay, but the hair on the characters looks strange to me. So, all right, let's continue doing searching a little bit because we can. Let's try education. Wow, those don't look good at all to me. Classroom? Again, I think that's going to look weird with the shadow. I think it's going to clash. We have to find an image that doesn't really use a shadow. Kids, because this is for kids. I've already used this image in one of my spots, and it's not really about playing. It's about schooling, so that doesn't really fit. How about books? Well, I don't want to spend all night staring at these. It's fun. They're good. It's good stuff, but we'll do one or two more. We'll do like main subjects and see if anything pops up that kind of feels like it could represent school. So I did a search for science. Those are too sciencey to be, they seem too distant from school. Mathematics, but again, it's got that big shadow. Huh. Okay. I might stick with what we've got so far. And if my spouse is like, that's terrible, then I'll change it. Let's scroll through these before we call it quits. Yeah. I think that's good enough. Because it is schoolish. It's like using lined paper. It's got a student ABCs. Although that's very crudely drawn there. I'm hoping this person looks like a teenager to me, or a young tween or something like that. And I'm hoping they write better than what's written here. Oh man, 3 a.m. That's pretty late. This is about as late as I can go. Then my brain starts falling out my ears. So I do have recordings up on YouTube later, as well as I guess as you've already noted. So have a great night, Kazaktaz. I think I'm about wrapped up for the evening anyway. Let's take a look. What have we done? We took this starter template and it with all of its landing style and its colors in here, and I've personalized it for School Desk, my project. And we did that by copy pasting some stuff to start, and then just massaging HTML until it started to feel right. Playing with gradients, that's a really big and important part of it. And the more we got in here, we added some polish to things that didn't feel great to me. The buttons with the gradients, it was just too much for my taste. Some people may like that, and more power to them, but I just didn't care for it. But I do like the gradient overall. It's a cool thing to have in there. There is this nice aspect as well of we're dealing with something about dealing with two primary colors of blue and yellow makes the gradient of the blue to green to yellow feel somehow educational to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it feels good. And we've got this nice cleaned up footer here with an action. So I'm very pleased with how this has come out. I mean, there's clearly more to do. This image doesn't make sense. This image doesn't make sense. Some of the colors here still don't fit. But I think those are things that I will work on as I figure out what to actually say here. Because a lot of this is going to be about messaging and what actually goes here. But as a starting point for what to have on a main page, this feels pretty good. There is one final thing I would like to check on. Let's log in and see what it looks like with the subnav, because, get it into the account. Can't like talk and type the credentials at the same time. Because the account, when you're logged in, has this sub navigation bar. And now when we revisit this page, we've got the sub nav like built in here. And frankly, part of me actually likes this even better than what is there with the logged out view. The bit of separation between the top navigation and the hero message is nice. I don't know that I want to distract. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hey, AIM1MX, welcome. Working on wrapping up a template design for a landing page on my SaaS product. I'm wondering if I just had this like a white space between, would that be totally strange? Oh, well, here's an example right here. This "you have signed out" will go away, but it's showing this white space, and that looks weird to me. I mean, even if I made it smaller, that would seem kind of strange. But just to make sure we have seen all the options, let's put it in for just a second. And we'll come into the top here, and we'll come into and add a margin. I think that should do it, right? Yeah, that's just not working. The fact that it has no content feels weird. So it just feels like this, why is there this awkward white space? So never mind. So it's just going to look a little better once you're logged in. The other option is to mess with this gray and make that a white, maybe, but then I'm kind of messing with my nav, which looks good in other spots. But since we're experimenting here, let's check it out. The border bottom, we want border, instead of gray 400, let's try border white. I like that. It adds some sharp contrast, and it's small enough to like visually separate it, but I think it's just going to look kind of rubbish when actually logged in. And frankly, I care more about the people who are logged in for the long term than I do about folks that are visiting the marketing page. I don't know. That's not so bad. Although it loses some... It either loses some character or I just got used to the old UI. I'm not sure. So I'm going to keep it as gray for now. And I can be convinced otherwise in the future. Just going to add that kind of a slight gray here. It adds a shift between them. Yeah. And now here's the page. Cool. Okay, so what are we going to do next? I've kind of set in place, well, let's put in some place what we've done. So we've got, as a checklist of items, we've got some basic styling is in place, and basic styling and layout. And we need to finish off image content. But before we can even get to that, I need to be working on the actual copy. Because if I'm not telling a story with this marketing page, it's not going to be doing anything for me. Copy, if you're not familiar with the term, and like it's sort of a marketing speak, it just means the words on the page, the body copy that you're looking at. So it's the messaging, everything that is surrounding the landing page. And then we need to decide, well, where. So we need to add links to things, link to stuff. We need to decide where that's going to go. That might actually lead us into some interesting topics of maybe I need a set of pages here to define more help about like what is this app doing. I might be able to go to like an FAQ document or some kind of page that I can link to, because if you saw on there was these items which might take you somewhere, or they might just be informational and stop. But these were about like, I think these are intended to be more like learning more kind of stuff. I don't know that I'll be ready for that right away. So it's possible that I might comment out this chunk of the template and leave that section. And then, really the message for this is get into this. Do what you want to do with School Desk, this tool. Here's what it is. We're your simplified homeschooling tool, something like that. Here are a couple of the highlights of you're in control of everything and we do all the scheduling for you, and like sell it in this section right here as what I want to care about. And then I could hide this potentially. I think this might be long-term a good place for testimonials to people who are actually using the tool with like little headshots or somebody's face pictured here with like their description and a link to them, or a link to maybe like a long form testimonial if they have more words they want to say. So kind of a case studies is what in industry people might want to put to prove that their product is what it is, but this is more of a direct to consumer play. So it's more of like stories that might be appealing to people. And then have the pricing with the calls to action. My pricing is not going to be this complex, frankly. I think ultimately I'm thinking of having a pricing that would be monthly and annual. I don't even think I'm going to have different tiers of stuff. I'm just going to either you have it or you don't. And you either pay per month if you want to, or you just pay by year. Or I might just simplify it just down to one tier. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And then finally the call to action to have somebody sign up. But all of that copy needs to be done, and I need to think about that. So that's one thing that can be done. I don't know that makes for good streaming, so that's probably something I'll do, and you'll see after it's over, and I'll talk through what I did. But that's something that I have to work on. So then we need images, and we need to actually link to things, and yeah, I feel like that's going to be the first version of the landing page. I'm pretty happy that I didn't have to. I was anticipating when I started this to have to go in and like hack up all of my templates and redo a bunch of stuff, but that using those block tags in a couple spots to override some CSS classes really paid huge dividends to keep all of the changes constrained to just this landing page, which was really cool. Wow, that is very funky. I don't think that was intentional. I wonder if the rendering gets messed up because of the bulleted list. Something in between. Yeah, that's better. Okay. All right, so that's I think where we're going to call it for the night. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully you learned a little bit about doing some landing page design and saw some CSS stuff in action, and saw how you can quickly take somebody else's template and work it into your own experience, assuming you've got the same tool set. Should be on next week as well. I don't know what the topic will be. We might get back to the actual onboarding experience, but I'm not sold on that. The content does go up on YouTube, so if you want to check out something later, you're free to do that. If you can give me a like or subscribe here on Twitch or YouTube, that'd be greatly appreciated. And otherwise, have a great evening. Take care.